as terrifying as it is, the only way you can learn to swim is by jumping in the pool. So you have to be in the waters. People are far more, I think, accepting and approachable than you would think.
Welcome to Get the Picture podcast. Our guest today is a portrait photographer who I've followed on social media for a while, ever since I heard him on another podcast back in 2019 or 2020, I think. That podcast was called So You Want to Be a Photographer. It was hosted by the amazing and very entertaining Australian photographer Gina Militia and her friend Valerie Koo. I learned so much in my photography journey by listening to their podcast. But a couple years ago, Gina tragically got sick and passed away. It was after that happened, and then a couple years later, after Raymond Hatfield stopped doing his podcast, the Beginner Photography Podcast, last year, that I really decided that I wanted to get this podcast started. Their podcast helped me so much to grow as a photographer that I felt like I wanted to do something to help fill that void they left for people journeying into photography today. So anyway, Vijay was on Gina Militia's podcast talking about something he was doing back then called a 100 Strangers Project. As he explained what it was in the podcast, the idea both excited and terrified me. Walking up to total strangers on the street and asking to take their picture? Are you crazy? I guess I was crazy because I pretty quickly decided I had to try it myself, and I was immediately hooked. So now I'm really excited to be here in 2026 with a person who inspired me so many years ago to talk about the 100 Strangers Project. Welcome to Get the Picture podcast, Vijay Britto.
Thank you, Brad. And honestly, it's an honor to be here talking on this podcast with you. I'm really glad to be here.
Amazing. So let's just start for listeners who may not know your work. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how photography became a part of your life?
So my name, of course, is Vijay Britto, and I was not a photographer. I'm actually a software engineer by profession. Was born and raised in India, Mumbai, and been here in the U.S. In the Washington D.C. area since 1999. And honestly, I just started photography. I had not really done any kind of photography in any way, shape, or form till I think 2010. So just about 15 years ago. Before that, of course, we did the standard photography with a Kodak camera, just the point and shoot. And I did not want any more than what was available there. In 2010 is when I kind of learned that there is more controls to a camera than just auto. There is a way we can actually manipulate light. I read up an article and then I used my old Kodak to kind of figure a little more of that. It allowed me some control. And then I realized that that's not good enough. So I think that's when I invested in my first kind of splurge camera buy. Actually, then it was a Nikon D90, which I bought with the standard lens and just kind of kept it in the box for a while. I think 2011 is when I decided to get out the auto mode and actually experiment a little more. Did it for a few times and then again it went back in the box. And then at some point, I think again towards the end of 2011 is when I learned of a project called Project 365. Basically, you force yourself to take a picture every day, doesn't matter what, how, where, and you post it to the group and people, extremely great group, very friendly people, lot of good feedback. That was interesting because it kind of forces you to start seeing things that you would not see because sometimes you're working and, late in the night because that is, of course, was my hobby, figuring out a picture to take anytime, at any point. You start observing things a little more and see if there is a good photo out there. Also exposed me to a lot of great photographers and I think lot of techniques. I heard a guest in a podcast at some point mentioned the ICM, the intentional camera movement, checking for reflections. There are so many things that I learned in that project. One thing that I did notice that I kind of was drawn to was photographing people. But I didn't absolutely have any courage to go and walk up to people and ask them for pictures then. So I used to kind of go sneaky and did sneak kind of quick hit. And I posted few of those as part of my project also. But I felt like that's something that I would like to do if I had a chance to actually pursue people photography. Around that time also, kind of saw this picture on National Geographic. I think the Afghan girl. I'm not sure if you've seen that picture. It's of a Afghan girl, an amazing picture. That was like, oh, I wish I can take a picture like that at some point in my
Like
life.
with the green eyes, really
Yeah.
striking. Yeah.
But it is just, I think more than a picture, I think it is just I think almost the fire in the eyes, despite the situation that she is in. It was a great picture. And when I finished the project 365, I made it successfully, and I was like, what next? I think, I'm not sure where, but I saw this picture, one of my favorite, stranger photographers. His name, I think is Matthew. He has I think, nickname on the group where I was. I think it's Flat World Sledge, a Sedge, Flat World Sedge. He's on Instagram too. I saw a picture by him of a young lady at the airport, and it was a great picture. And just was a simple picture of a lady at the airport. And then I read the description, and it was like a stranger picture. And I'm like amazed that someone could do a random stranger picture like that. And then I read up a little more, and then I realized it was posted in a group called 100 Strangers on Flickr, which is a photo sharing app. That's when kind of my interest got piqued, I guess. And I said, oh, people do this? I mean, it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure how they do it. Like what you said earlier, I realized the project involved actually walking up to a random stranger and, just asking for a picture. I mean, as weird as it sounds, and that's what they did. And they did a great job. And I think that's when I said, oh, I need to try this. I went to the group, I read up the rules of the group, what they do, and the emphasis on it being a stranger encounter. And that's when I got kind of hooked into that. And, also saw a few other like photographers in the group, some people that come to mind immediately: Arnav, Barbara, Peter. There are some great photographers out there who do great work with strangers. There was a person called David. I used to follow these people and was amazed at the pictures, and kind of, what my impression of a project of this nature would be, that it's going to be candidates and stuff, but actually kind of semi posed, if you may call it, to the point where it's not unreal, but still authentic, and makes a person look good. That's what kind of, I think, got me hooked. So I said I will try this next if I have a chance, and I will pursue this project. But I never really found the courage to do that for a while. And then I think, I said, you know what, I'm gonna just jump in, take a stab at it. We'll see what happens. And that's where I think the journey started in 2014 for this Strangers project, I would say. And it's been 12 years now. Still on it.
You started that back in 2014. I didn't realize that long ago. Okay.
Yeah.
So
2014, 2015. Actually, my first stranger portrait, I think it took me about good 4 or 5 months to gather the courage to actually go on with it. So I think my first portrait would be around 2015.
yeah, I had a similar progression with photography projects where my first one was also a 365 project, and it really helped me too. So anyone listening who's looking for a first project that's maybe less intimidating than going up and talking to strangers to take their portrait, 365 project is a great place to start, where you commit to taking, and in most cases posting, a picture on social media or Flickr, Instagram, whatever, every day for a year. And that also introduced me to so many different types of photography I never would have otherwise tried, and increased my skills a ton. So definitely
Did
highly
you
recommend it.
post on any group per se with the Project 365? Because I used to do this on a actually project. There was a website called project365.com, and that's where I started this.
I posted them on Instagram every day, but I didn't create a new page for that. I just posted it on my regular Instagram
That
page.
group, if people are, following besides Instagram, if you again want to connect with like-minded people who are also trying to find their feet, I guess, some like wide-dated experiences, there's a site called, I think, project365.com, I think, or .org, .com. It's pretty amazing and very, very interactive and great feedback.
Cool. So, like me, you heard this idea. At first, it sounded crazy to do a 100 strangers project, to go up to people you don't know out in the street and ask them for a picture. Took you a few months to get up the courage to do it. So, do you remember your first stranger portraits that you did? What was that experience like the first time you did it?
Absolutely. I think in all honesty, pretty much if you show me the picture, I can. I mean, I know exactly where and what the location and what the I think the setup was for the picture. But my first picture, yes, I remember it. Uh, I think it was a lady. Now I can call her a friend, but called Ariel. Her name was Ariel. She was at the front of the gym where I used to go to, and I had seen her a couple of times. And every time I saw, I used to. I mean, one of the things you'll notice in my pictures possibly is eyes, because I think eyes is a big draw in my pictures. They just kind of help me connect, and I think. Uh, with Ariel, when I saw her the first time, I was like, wow, she would be like a great, like when I walked in, I was like, oh, this would be a great stranger. If only I had the courage to go and ask her. And how do I approach it? Because it was like to find the right time, because there are already always people in the gym and you need to make it authentic and not plan it. So I there are a couple of times I almost went and asked, but then I kind of, chickened out. But as luck would have it, at some point during those next few days, I saw her by the water cooler and it was a great opportunity. And I still kind of remember how I felt. It was extremely unnerving and I was extremely nervous. I'm not even sure I remember exactly what I said. Uh, and she had kind of a intimidating air about her, even whether she wanted it or not. She just had that. And maybe it was my impression of her. Sometimes perceptions also come into play. And but as soon as I said, I asked her what I asked her, she was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And I think that was kind of an eye opening thing for me, a good lesson that impressions or first, impressions can be wrong. I was almost assuming that it's going to be like, what the hell? Why do you want a picture? And, I think that's so weird. She smiled and, said, let's do it. And, till date, I feel that if she had said no, maybe my journey would not have been the way it would have turned out to be. So that I think one yes, I still credit that one yes as a big part, a huge part of my journey so far. I always told her that uh, I'm really thankful for her that she said yes that thing, and it really helped me from there on as a photographer.
That's something that for me, when I started the 100 Strangers Project, I assumed that most people that you ask randomly on the street would say no to doing a portrait, but that has not been my experience at all. In fact, I've had very few people say no. Is that your experience too?
Yes, actually, that is true. I mean, there have been days where you just end up with like many rejections, I guess, certain days, and certain days uh I think everything just falls in place. And like you mentioned, just overall, I think more people are open to doing this and being approached and saying yes. Many more people than I would have imagined. Like you said, it would, I would assume many more people would be like, no, but it's not been the experience. And even those few people who have said no, they have been extremely courteous and very polite. And, and every time I've coached someone, even if they've said no, it's always been like with a smile or because they're too shy or whatever. Yeah, I think people like to be noticed and people like to be, someone actually, I guess, they feel good about it. I feel in some sense that, someone going out of their way and asking them to be a part of, their few minutes. So I agree with you on that.
So, taking pictures of 100 strangers, that could take a while. How many 100 stranger projects have you done?
I finished two. I am on my third. The first one, I think, took me about 2.5 to 3 years. The next one took me about 3.5 to 4. The third one, honestly, has been a little more uh, deliberate, much more slower. I took some gaps, and with COVID, a couple of years were lost during those times too. So the third one, I think it's been almost 5 to 6 years. It's still going on, but I mean, I'm not in a rush. It happens when it happens.
Yeah, I started mine in 2020, right before the pandemic hit, and got a few done. And then the pandemic hit, and very few people were outside on the streets. So I kind of stopped for a while. And then I started again, but I'm still going on that first one. I'm almost done. I have around 75 or 80 done, and I just
Wow,
haven't
pretty close.
finished. Yeah. So I just got to get back to it. But I agree, there's no time limit on it. You just do it when
But
the
it does, I think it does. It also slows down because I think in the first, I think at least the first 100, it was like, I need to get to 100, right? It becomes like that is your focus and I need to get to 100. And it's almost like a race you're running to finish, right? Even though it's not a race, that ends up becoming like, oh, I need to get there. I think once that happens, then once the pressure is off, then it's like, I think it's more, I think, enjoyable at that point in time, because now you're just doing it. You know, you can do this and you've done it once. And it's just, I think you enjoy the experience more than getting into the numbers.
Sure. So you've clearly spent years and surely countless hours of your life working on these projects. You don't get paid to do them, at least as far as I know. Why do you keep doing it, and why do you think personal projects are important for photographers? And
I think,
folks can say hi to my cat wants to be on the screen, so
yeah, she
everyone can
needs a
say hi to my cat.
hello. What's her name? What's her name?
Mochi.
Mochi. Okay. We just got a new cat in our house too. So we are just getting just few weeks back. So we are getting used to life with a cat. Her name is Luna in our case.
I have a Luna too.
Wow. Okay. Uh, well, I think personal projects, it was never about getting paid anyways. I just think personal projects, because you're doing it at your own, because you're doing it because you want to do it, because you love doing it, I think leaves a lot of room for helping improvement, helping you grow possibly as a photographer or whatever you've been doing. For me, I kind of, if I look back, I feel like the last 15 years, it would be, I do feel that it would have been incomplete without this project now, right? It just feels like a big part of my life, because there have been days where I've gone out trying to just walk around finding strangers and like spend hours, like you said, sometimes 3 hours, not finding anyone that I wanted to, felt inspired or felt like I could picture. Sometimes I spend like 2, 3 hours, find one person, and sometimes you go for a few days and you don't find someone, and some point you find someone, but they are not exactly keen, and you just move on, and you're like, oh, what opportunity that was, and I missed it. So yeah, but I just feel that it allowed this project definitely allowed me to grow as a photographer to an extent. Some of the thoughts and ideas I had, the perceptions I had, I changed. Like you mentioned, about people not being approachable, and actually there are a lot of good people, and people are very approachable if you are kind of honest, genuine, respectful. I think more people are bound to say yes. Uh, at least, yeah, we don't know them overall as people, but for those few minutes, people are friendly, and they are reciprocate within the what energy you give them.
Would you say that you've become a better photographer from doing these projects? Like, has your photographic style, your skill set, your confidence changed from doing 100 Stranger projects?
Absolutely. I mean, I was not a photographer, like I said, when I started this. Even after the project 365, I got technical. So, like I said, I'm by profession, I manage software projects. So I'm not as creative as I'm more technical and analytical. So for me, everything is about, reading, understanding, and then doing it step by step. So in the initial days when I should do this also, it was like I almost had like a script of how I want this to happen. It was not never very spontaneous in that sense initially. The photography, it was all about technical, how I should look at the light, how I should do this, how should I ask the stranger. Now it's a little more free flowing. The confidence definitely is much better, both in my ability as a photographer, plus the social dynamics of, connecting with someone, and also being able to accept that rejections are going to be part of this process. So definitely think my skill sets has improved. I've improved as a photographer, and it has led to directions that I had not thought the photography would go in. So that is kind of a great journey so far.
What advice would you give to a beginner who's terrified of the idea maybe of walking up to someone they don't know and asking for a portrait?
So I think what you said already covered part of it. Uh, Most photographers, like you and I both already talked about, will say that as terrifying as it is, the only way you can learn to swim is by jumping in the pools. So you have to be there or in the waters. People are far more, I think, accepting and approachable than you would think. That's one. I think the other thing I mentioned was initial perceptions can be wrong. Who you think would be well intimidating may actually be a very friendly person. They might want to be seen and heard sometimes. I've seen people who, would look extremely, oh, I can't do this. And we'll talk about it, but just like I don't think there's a chance I'm going to get a picture of this person. And first thing was, yeah, sure, let's do this. And so that's one thing. Other thing I've learned is be be genuine and be respectful. So if someone says no, I don't insist. I don't push. Because I respect their time and they are a reason to say a no. That's pretty much it. And the last thing is that when you start this project, the fear of rejection will be there. Don't take it personally. People will say no. It's nothing to do with you per se. A lot of times it is true with them. They are just not comfortable being photographed by a random stranger in today's time and age. That's perfectly, especially for ladies, but generally I think it is pretty normal. I would say it's more normal for people to say no. You should accept a no and expect a no. And if they say no, that's fine. At least you still end up making someone feel special for that guess or for that moment, and that's good enough. The 100 Strangers project, I almost call it like a portraits of a stranger now, because the 100 kind of puts a number pressure to it. It makes it sound more authentic, but just approaching someone, if you don't find that person, fine, you'll find someone else, and you will eventually get to 100 people, 200 people, 1,000 people. It's okay. That's and just learn to interact with more people. So I would say, don't take these rejections personally, and just remember that every time, except there are very few people that I know who do not feel nervous when doing butterflies. That's perfectly normal. That means you're just normal. It is expected to happen. It's not easy to go to a random person and ask them to say that I would like to take a picture of you, and so I think yeah, just go for it. What's the worst that will happen? They'll say no. That's fine.
Great advice. So I'm interested to walk through how your process goes when you are asking someone, a stranger, to do a portrait. So can you talk through, like, first, how you decide what makes a good location, what makes someone catch your eye as a potential subject? And when you approach someone, what do you actually say? Like, can you tell us how the dialogue might usually go back and forth?
Sure. So I'll start with the last question first, because the first and second question are a little more difficult. I'll tell you why. But my process actually has evolved a little bit. My style of approaching has also evolved. One thing I have learned over time is, and I consciously do this, is I never approach someone from like behind. I don't call them out from even if someone I feel as catches my eye and I need to take a picture, or I'm not sure, I put an effort to kind of walk fast or run past in the other direction and be available when they walk in front of me, because it's always easier and a little more, I think, uh, it starts it on a better note when you're kind of looking someone in the eye and you're approaching them, as opposed to calling them from behind. Because a lot of, like, why is it's always your reaction is a little different when someone calls you from behind versus a stranger like waiting for you, and you know exactly what to expect at that point in time. Usually I just introduce myself. If I do find someone interesting, I will introduce myself, and I will just excuse myself into their I guess space for a few minutes. I will tell them that I am a photographer. For the longest time, I used to say that I'm a amateur photographer, even when I got good at it, because I just felt that I think it was more for me, just to give me that escape route that, oh, this is just an amateur photographer. But I used to tell them I'm a photographer, and then that I'm doing this project for 100 strangers or portrait of a stranger, and what is the intent behind it. And my intent always was, to find interesting people in a crowd that stood out for whatever reason. And each person was different. And I used to try to think about that one person caught my eye. And if I couldn't, sometimes it's just instinctive. And I would just say that, something about their personality or something about their look that I really like. And, I think that they would be a great candidate for being a part of my pictures. Would they have a few minutes to spare for, doing a couple of pictures? And they would usually be like, where? Right here? And yeah, right here would be great. I'll ask you a few questions, and we'll do a few pictures. If you like, you know, taking pictures, we'll do more, but at least maybe a couple of pictures. And It does help. It did help over time. Once you did, like, the initial few pictures might be a little more difficult. That's why I felt like my initial few strangers were really great for me to move this journey along. Once I had a few pictures, then it became easier for me to show them on Instagram what I did. And as the quality of pictures improved, that made it even more easier. And then I think I did end up printing a few cards, the contact cards with, my name, phone number. That does give it a little more, legitimacy. Also assures people that, that they know who I am and they can check me out wherever they want to, as opposed to just some random person on a stream taking a picture. I also have my camera like in my hand when I'm about to approach them, so that they don't think I'm some weirdo just trying to take some pictures on a cell phone, and walk out, which is okay too. I'm not saying that is wrong, but they know that this is a little more, I think, yeah, this person actually is serious about what he's doing. So having a camera in your hand helps. Having because they do, a lot of most people ask me, or do you have like an Instagram page or something where I can look you up, and then check on the phone immediately, or if you have a contact card where we can reach out. And then the other question they would usually ask me, which is, can I get my pictures, or will I get my pictures? Or so some questions I kind of preempt now. I tell them it's free. I'm not charging them, especially when you're in a crowded location. If it's like a touristy location, you know, like when we went to Rome and stuff, people think, oh, I'm here just, selling pictures, right? So I'm not doing that. I assure them that I'm not a weirdo or a psycho, just trying to take random pictures. Uh, I mean, sometimes it just puts them at ease. I mean, you could say that approaching people for random pictures is kind of being a weirdo, but people have been extremely, yeah, acceptable and approachable with this, what I just said. So mostly it'll either be, oh no, I'm in a rush, no, I'm shy, uh, or I'm not comfortable being on pictures. But other than that, I think it's worked out pretty well, especially if you're with other people around with them. I think it's worked out even better. Yeah, so that's kind of my high level approach.
Okay.
What about
And
you?
what
Have you done the same? I mean, how does your thing work, if I may?
Yeah, it sounds pretty similar. I usually make sure to have the pictures I've done so far for the project on my phone ready to show them if they ask, or usually now I'll just show them my phone after I start talking. And I'll usually say something like, "Hi, I'm a street photographer and I like taking pictures of people. Your hat looks really cool and the light's really good here. Would you be willing to do a couple of pictures? And here's some examples of other ones I've done." Something
Sure.
like
Now I
that.
can also add that I was on your podcast, so that will be
There you go, there you go. Um,
it also helps now. I mean, honestly, now it does help a lot of people, uh, because because of the work we've already done now. When you Google and you just put Vijay Britto photography, it shows up, right, your name. So uh, uh, whether that is a true measure of me being a photographer or not, at least it gives a legitimacy to the work that you have done, right? Because people put it up, oh, this is you, yeah, I'm here. So, so Google knowing me kind of helps a little bit in that sense.
yeah. I have found that saying something particular about what attracted my attention for them does really help. Like I said, like, "Oh, your hat looks really cool," or "Your hair looks really cool in the light like this," or, whatever it is. "Your, shirt is really interesting," or I don't know, something specific usually helps sort of be like, "Oh," because they're probably thinking, "Why are you asking me to do this?"
Yeah, people don't see themselves the same way as you do. I'm not sure if how many times you've gotten this, but like I tell them that if I get $1 every time someone says this, I don't think I look good in pictures. I'm not a good subject. I get it all the time. And I'm like,
Mm.
me judge that. I mean, and I tell them that, yeah, I'll show you the pictures. If you do not like them, I just delete them right here. So it's okay. I'm not going to put you in a, picture and put it up if you do not like your picture.
Yeah, when people say, "I don't look good in pictures," challenge accepted. All right, I
Yeah,
bet I can
yeah,
make you look
yeah.
good.
So I tell them that, in that case, if you don't look good, then it's on me. If you look great, it's on you. That's fine. Let's just take that from there. And what do you lose? You lose 2 minutes of your time. And it's amazing how 2 minutes sometimes become 20, 30, 35, 40 minutes, and they're just in there. So
Mm. So you said earlier that eyes are something that usually attracts your attention. Is that usually what you notice first that helps you decide, oh, that's someone I want to ask?
That is one big factor. So I know you asked me two other questions earlier: the location and what draws me, or what's my reason for picking some certain stranger. The location, honestly, I have very rarely focused on, because that's never been like, oh, this location is great, so let me. It's really about finding a good stranger, and I try to put them in good light. That's where it is, because most of the times we shoot with shallow aperture, anyways. So for me, I try to blur the background to the extent possible, so that it's never really about that. For me, it's never really so much environmental. It's more about the person and the eyes. So that's something that I also realize. I tend to get closer. So even though I start like wide, my eventual flow is to get closer and closer till I'm more like locked in on the face. You'll see that in a lot of my pictures, because I try to get the eyes kind of, as my focal point in many cases. So location kind of almost becomes like it's wherever I am, because I know if I do ask the person to move with me somewhere in a certain spot, it's always about, can we go and find some place where there's good light. It's never about, let me go and find a cool location, because they are about to go on their way and I don't want to take up too much time. So I'm like, let's, find you a good spot with good light, and let's try a few shots and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. I mostly asked about location because at least where I lived in Minnesota, there's just not a lot of places where people are out and about, especially in the winter there,
Okay.
that it's hard to figure out a good location. You can't
Okay.
probably
Okay.
do it in a shopping mall because it's private property. I guess that's more what I was getting at. You made
Got
reference to like touristy areas before or things like that.
I have a couple of places where, but I think I misunderstood the location then. Okay, so I do have a few places where I normally hang out more. There is a place, Bethesda. I mean, of course, you would know in Maryland, where I've done a bulk of my pictures, because it's kind of got this. It's a downtownish area with a lot of people from different places coming there, hanging out, walking around, and most people there are kind of in more of, there are restaurants. It's not a tourist area, because in a tourist area, I feel it's a little more difficult for me, because there is like photographers, trying to earn a quick buck sometimes, which is fine. It's just, you would think people think that you're one of them and you're trying to just, grab their attention and try to take a picture and, get some money. But uh, at Bethesda, it's a pretty cool place. People are hanging out, just relaxing. And when people are relaxing, just walking around, just shopping, they are in a more chilled frame of mind, I guess. But having said that, like I said, I shot photograph even in airports sometimes, which is again not always great. But if I find a time and a place, and person is ready, I've done that too. Not great lighting in the airport, but then the subject trumps the light in that case. But yeah, Bethesda is one place I've been. But some places when I go to back home to Mumbai, there are certain places I go, like to the malls. I cannot photograph in the mall, but then I do ask the person to step out with me, which does put some more, I think, friction, in the sense that once get into this, oh, let's go out and do it and stuff, it just takes more time, and people do push back on that sometimes. So it's much more easier. Bethesda is one place where I've, like, I think 50% of my photographs would be in that area. And I find people from all over, like diverse, people who are visiting, from different countries, from different states. They are walking around there sometimes. But
Okay.
but I have a camera with me in my car all the time, pretty much. And that means whenever I'm waiting, I'm never bored, because I'm looking for people all the time.
Hear that, photographers? Always carry your camera with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, we all have our phone with us, so we all have a camera with us. But if you want to do a project like this, 365 or 100 strangers, have your camera with you all the time because you never know when something
Thumbs up.
might comes up. Yeah.
Yeah, there have been regrets like that, where I'll come home and I'm like, no, that was a great change. I just wish they gave me. Or there are times when I'm driving and I see someone just pass by, and walking on the street, and I'm driving, I cannot do much. So your eyes are always seeking,
Yes. Yes.
of subject.
That was actually something when I was in college in the late 80s. I took a photography class, and instructor then, of course, that was back in the film days when it would have been unusual for someone to carry a camera with them all the time. He insisted on that same thing. You need to always have your camera with you because you'll be driving along and you'll see this incredible flower on the side of the road and you just pull over and take the picture. Otherwise, you'll miss it. And that, that advice has always stuck with me for sure. You mentioned doing photos in the DC area, and I used to live in the DC area as well, so I am familiar with some things there. But you also mentioned doing some in Mumbai. I'm curious if the reactions you get are similar in different countries or if it's a little different.
It's a little different, but again, with Mumbai going back home, to India, I think I was kind of surprised. I thought there'll be a little more resistance and pushback because, again, the nature, how things out there. But things have moved along. Things are so different now. And actually, I was very pleasantly surprised. Most people, again, they're caught by surprise because something like this. But even in India, there are a lot of photographers doing this now. Especially I think after the Humans of New York. I think Humans of New York. That is one more project that I learned a lot from. Very different than what I do, but uh, I think I think there are other projects that sprouted similarly. There is the Humans of Mumbai. So there are projects like these people doing these stranger projects. So people are familiar with it now, and people are far more open to doing pictures now than I was. So it is a little different in terms of how you approach it and how you kind of seek approval and stuff like that. People sometimes can be a little more conservative and a little more wary, and that's fair given how the world we live in today. But I think people are much more open now to pictures. I think at most places I've been in. So I think it just depends on the individual now. I just don't think it's really to do with the overall picture. Each individual is different. And I've been surprised by people whom I thought would absolutely say no. And the only reason I go and ask at that point is more because I think I mentioned this for new photographers also. If you don't ask, the answer is a no, right? So yeah, you might ask and 99.9% they might say a no. But if you don't ask, then 100% it is a no. That
Yeah.
there's not, then there's nothing worse coming home and feeling that if only I had asked, maybe they could have said a yes. I've had those
Yeah.
regrets so many times. If I decided from here on, at some point it said, what's the worst that will happen? They'll say, no, it's okay. It's better than coming and regretting and thinking that, hey, what if I'd asked and they would have said a yes? Because there have
Mm.
been times where I've thought over the person and like, that would have been such a great picture. That would have been such a great picture.
Yeah. So looking at your stranger portraits on Instagram, one thing that's noticeable is that there are more women than men, which I think is noteworthy because one might think that an unknown man approaching women they don't know randomly on the street might not get a positive response all the time, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Can you talk about that dynamic?
I mean, honestly, I've thought about it and I don't really have a great answer for it. Something I've realized or noticed is that I think women are far more perceptive. So I think they are perceptive and they understand intent. So that's why I said that at the start that when you approach someone, be respectful, be genuine, and be honest. And if you're honest with your intent and they understand when you approach them and you tell them exactly why you're doing what you're doing and what stuck out or what seems something that's grabbed your attention, I think they latch on to that. And if they feel that there's something wrong here, I think they are pretty perceptive. So the other thing I found though is that women have been much more approachable and easy to work with. Uh, you'll be surprised. I mean, I have, at least in the first phase of the project, I did approach many guys, and because that was more easier for me as a guy to go and talk to a guy. But I got a far more rejections from guys because they were just, I think, awkward um, and being photographed, and another guy approaching them and saying, "I'll take a picture of you." I think they found that more weird. I think a woman found a guy approaching her and saying that I'm going to take a picture of you because your sense of dressing looks great, or you look, your eyes look awesome. Versus I felt like going to a guy and saying that maybe I did not have the conviction when I said that to the person too. But something I think that and some I think some there are a couple of places where I think older people, there was and that is true for both men and women. I think older people and maybe they're more suspicious. They're not sure what's going on, why this guy wants to take a picture, the older folks. But with women, I think they have been like, once you get past that initial, thing of approaching them and you show them what you have done and why you have done this. In fact, this question about why, what grabs your attention in a person was asked. I've never been asked that question all my life in all these pictures, except the last stranger I did, her name was Genesis. She asked me this question at the end of the shoot, like, what actually grabs your attention? And I really don't have an answer because it's very instinctive. I could make up reasons after I said, oh, I want to take a picture of this person, and I could say, what about it? What about her or him made me do this? But honestly, at the point where I'm looking and asking for a picture, it's really instinctive. I think this person really carries herself well, himself well, or has a great vibe. Sometimes it's just I think sometimes people, the way they carry themselves, like, very strong and very, confident. Sometimes it's extremely kind, a great smile or a very approachable. You can feel this person is approachable, right? I don't think there is a definite, I guess, recipe. So this is what I'm going to look for. Sometimes I just walk and there is just a certain way someone looks, is looking across the street, right? And you say, oh, wow, this person grabbed my attention. 99% it works. Sometimes, what, when I start talking to the person, something about the person, when they start talking, doesn't quite gel. And when they say no, I'm okay with it because I just felt like that that connection was not there, right? So I don't necessarily have like a good answer for how and why there is more women versus guys. I think they have just been more approachable, and I have stopped overthinking it. If someone, somewhere grabs my attention, I'm going to go and just ask things. Uh, that's more easier that way.
Yeah, I think about like when if there's a family, a married couple, and they have kids, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the woman who makes the appointment to go get family portraits done.
Yeah,
It is something that maybe more culturally is women are more likely to want to get pictures taken, and so that might be part of it too, that
exactly. And
dynamic.
also maybe this is again, I'm of course no psychologist, but also I think when you start talking, so earlier, like I used to focus on the picture more. So, when I start doing this, I used to always get to, let me, I will take a picture and ask you 3 or 4 questions, right? I've changed that a little bit now. So now, before we start the picture, I start talking a little more, right? So, and I don't make it like I'm going to ask you 4 questions, right? I'm just like you are doing right now. I'm just going to have a conversation with you. And so, who are you? What do you do? And, just from there. And I do have a few questions that I want to ask them to know them better, but that is more to break the ice. But when they start talking, and I think in that sense, I think possibly women also are better at, sharing. Uh, Guys, including myself, I would not want to share a lot of information, but it's easier to get a conversation flowing there. With women versus the guys, it's very abrupt answers sometimes. Some people do want to talk, but mostly it's like, okay, you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer and stop right there. I won't go further. I'm not sure if that's the experience too, but that's what I've noticed with people.
One interesting thing that I was thinking about while we're talking about this is that sometimes when you're walking around with your camera, people can see you have a professional camera, and sometimes people will come up to you and say, "Hey, will you take my picture?" And for those people, 99% of those people are men who ask to have their picture taken, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. That is true. That is true. It depends on people. I think, yeah, those would be the people, like the, few people who would want, they are outgoing, obviously. Otherwise, I think men would be more like, just leave me to my own business. You do what you need to do. Sometimes there have been parts where I've asked if there is a couple also, the guy will tell the woman that you can take it. I'm not, going to be part of the picture. They have this quick discussion and, okay, the woman is like, okay, I'll do it. And that's it. And that's how it works.
It's too bad in a sense because looking at your stranger portraits and in my experience too, some of my favorite portraits are of men, and it would be great if more men were interested in
Yeah.
having their picture taken.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've like I said, I've stopped overthinking it because my goal is, like I said, to find people. And I also, it's not just doing a stranger portrait. My intent has also changed now from the initial days of just doing a portrait. Is, I'm not doing a candid picture. So I'm doing a picture where I'm getting to a point where I'm approaching someone, making them comfortable enough to be part of my pictures. But from there on, my goal is also to make them for those few minutes a star, like be the hero of the shot. It's not just capturing. Do my best, even though you're not a model, to do my best to give you like that, that attention and time for those 2 minutes. Like you're my model, right? So that's where I go with, and to make you a hero of the shot. That's at least my attempt. I want to improve further to make that even more possible. At some point, I even wanted to make it to a point where I'm so good I can make it like a magazine cover if I could. But we'll work on that.
Well, and that's in this era now of AI with photography, I think what you're talking about of actually having that conversation, actually making that human connection where it's not just a quick snapshot, you're actually connecting with a person you didn't know before, and then you have their Instagram or their contact information, you actually might stay in touch, and that is an experience that you wouldn't have if you just, click a shot with your
Yeah.
phone or do a quick snapshot.
Yeah, I don't do a shoot and scoot, and I tell them I'm not doing a shoot and scoot. And you're right. Many of my folks that I've photographed have turned into friends. We are in touch sometimes. Some are very good. I have shot with the same people multiple times. They have been helped my photography journey by being my practice models. People I have photographed their occasions, weddings for them. I've done many things. It's been a part of the journey, and some of them are very much in touch. They're very encouraging. They have recommended me to friends, families. So it's worked out pretty well, and that kind of almost gives me that addition. Whenever there are self doubts, you get that additional assurance that you're on the right track because people that you photograph, they trust you still. So
What you said there, that some people that you've met through just going and talking to them on the street have become ongoing models that you can practice with and get better with. And that's something I remember when I was first wanting to do portraits, like, how do you find people to shoot portraits with? And it's hard. Well, this is one way you can do that. Go up and ask people. And
yeah,
then if you earn their trust and they like your photos, you can work with them again and again.
at least 15 or 20 of my folks that I've shot with them multiple times after that. And like I said, some have, I think, even invited me to, that's where my paid photography kind of took off also, basically using this 20 project as unplanned, but that's how it went too. So.
So, can you tell us the stories of maybe a couple of your most memorable encounters, whether that's good or bad, that stand out after all these years? You do these portraits, but you also get to know people. Can you talk about a couple of the most memorable ones?
Yeah, sure, I will. And I mean, I'll kind of preface it by saying that pretty much every encounter, 260, 270 people I photographed. I think everyone is memorable for me still because each one was something special, something different, a different place, lesson learned, different conversation, different interactions. And I do remember like every interaction to that extent. But just if I had to pick a few, the first one I mentioned with Ariel, I mean, just because it was my first and it first picture, and if it wasn't for that, the rest of it possibly would have. I don't know whether it would have happened, not happened, but that did play a big part in giving me the confidence. So definitely yes. I still remember the heartbeat going really fast the first time I approached that person. Another one I think that comes to mind possibly was this young lady called Helen. We actually saw her in the church. And that's another fun part is that my project, because of the time I've been doing it, it's kind of a family thing now because everyone in my family knows it. So sometimes even my son has helped me with my shoots. Suddenly on the streets you're walking and he helped me with the reflector. uh, my wife, I mean, sometimes she's like, oh, I think we're at somewhere, and like, oh, that would have been a great stranger for you, or that looks like a great picture. She's been a part of it. Sometimes we go for walks and she's walking in a different direction, I'm in a different, and suddenly she's like, I just saw someone I think you would really think would be a great picture. So the family has been extremely supportive. My brother has helped me with my pictures sometimes. I mean, it's interesting that everyone, it's like now a family thing that, oh, this can be a great part of the project, right? So in this case, I think my wife actually noticed Helen in the church, and then we waited for the service to get over. And as we leaving, I approached her, uh, And her whole family was with her, but the whole family then kind of, moved out, and we did a few pictures with her. And then it turned out that actually I learned that she wanted to be a model, possibly, or she aspired to be a model. And and she's mentioning this to me, and we've been in touch and we're good friends. She calls me family almost. So, and she's always acknowledged my, I guess, contribution to her journey. So I think I'll do the same in terms of her. I think this pictures that we did, we did a few more after that as another shoot, planned. And that, I think she used that as kind of a springboard somewhere, or some kind of initiation into her modeling career. So, and she became a part-time, full-time model. So, and she regularly posts on Instagram, and I see her pictures as a model now. And she's always been kind and generous and credits me with part of it, with part of her, whatever her. Great to see someone whom I photographed as a young lady now, being a model, and I see pictures of her on Instagram. Then there is another person I had met at a museum when we had visiting, and we met this young lady Julia with her then boyfriend Andy, and we did a few pictures, and it turned out to be a connection that they invited me to do portraits for them again. And I s- like I, s- I did my whole journey into photography, paid photography, stayed away from weddings because I found it very stressful. But then at some point, Andy and Julia got married, and they asked me to be their wedding photographer. But I was honest that it's not something I do because it's stressful, but they insisted because, they liked what I'd done before with them. And it was like a friend connection now. And that was my first paid photography for a wedding,
Wow.
like 4 years ago. And then since then, I think I've shot like many weddings, but that was my starting point. So all of these, I think, parts of my journey are linked to these stranger encounters. So I think, yeah, these are a few things that come to mind. There's one more I'll mention, Paulina, again, someone I met because she was waiting for her friends who were late by Nando's, and I saw her, and again, was not sure whether she will say yes, no. It turned out she said yes. Post that, connected and became very good friends. She was an au pair from Germany. She was here, for a few months. She was my practice model. Uh, and then eventually she went back to Germany. I think she found the love of her life there. And then she and he, her, her then boyfriend, they visited US again, and I did the engagement pictures for them. And now, of course, they're happily married, with a kid, and we still in touch. She still get Christmas cards. It's great to be connected with people like this all over the world, after through some random encounters and just serendipity that just connects us together. So just few
That's
random
incredible.
ones.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing those. That's super inspiring to hear that going up and talking to strangers led to doing paid wedding photography as a ongoing thing and other portrait photography, but also just again those human connections, making new friends that are now friends for life. That's amazing. Let's talk about what gear you use when you're doing street portraits. What camera are you usually using? What lens or lenses do you usually use? And do you use lighting or reflectors at all, or do you just go with the lighting that's there?
So I think my initial part of my journey in photography generally was with the D90 Nikon, and I used the 85 millimeter 1.8 for the portraits. Since then, I have used the D750. Again, I've stayed with Nikon for the last 15 years. It's pretty much in Nikon. And 85 millimeters and 50 millimeters has been my go-to for portraits. For a while, I did use the 70 to 200 millimeter, again, because of I think the aperture and just the ability to compress and blur the background. I really
Uh-huh.
like that. Uh, that is a big help as far as portraits are concerned, especially because the locations and the crowds around just helps you blur it all clean. But then I've not used a lot of artificial lighting. I've used reflectors if the opportunity arises. If like, I approach someone and there is another person with them, I ask them, the friend or the boyfriend or sometimes the wife, or, depending on who is involved, to help the reflector duties. My son has helped, my wife has helped sometimes. So it depends, who's around. If I can have an opportunity to use a reflector, I have, but I've not used like Flash, for example, except for one or two, just because I feel that, again, given the time that I have with the person, I didn't want that to become too technical and me trying to figure out lighting. I just wanted to have a very basic, non-intimidating setup where I can just ask the person and just put them in a good light, just adjust my aperture and my, uh, shutter and ISO and just get the picture. I usually shoot in open shade, pretty much, even if it's sunny, just put them in a shadow area. And if there is like it's evening, then I always use backlighting. That is something I learned over time, that you don't have the subject face on, kind of have it turn around, and it's just gets great lighting on the back. The rim lighting is fantastic. I tend to prefer people somewhere to give them somewhere to lean against, or sit. Just standing awkwardly in the middle of a street sometimes can be challenging. Something to lean helps them relax. Um, but not a lot of artificial lighting. I've just stuck to just using these 85 millimeter. I think is a great lens for portraits. Kind of allows you to stay back and still kind of capture the eyes, which I really focus on. Or 50 millimeter, I think, is that good sweet spot between you being too close and too far, right? And again, the zoom lens, the 70 to 200 millimeter is great, but I think sometimes can be intimidating to people with such a big lens. People do like, oh, this is, but sometimes people like it because it just makes you feel like, oh, this is a real photographer with a big lens. People do confuse the camera and the lens, I think, which is, I mean, works sometimes for my advantage. They do feel that because you're carrying a big lens and a big, unit there, you know what you're doing. So
That's true. That's true.
that's
Have you ever done any exhibitions of your stranger portraits, or thought of doing exhibitions or a book or anything like that?
never an exhibition. I don't even know how to go about it, honestly. So I'm not sure I'm there. A book, I have dabbled with the idea. I just didn't find I think, the commitment to do it. And I'm not sure how I would go about it to an extent, meaning I don't do release forms with my strangers. It's more just, just a word connection. And of course, I do have the fact that they're posing for me and it's with consent. But I've never asked anyone that, hey, if I ever put a book and put a picture in there and stuff like that, right? So I'm not sure how that dynamic works. Like, I have a lot of strangers I'm in touch with, so I do dabble with the idea of maybe I'll pick my top 50 and just go from there that I'm in touch with, get their permission, and maybe do a book. Uh, but I have not pursued that idea in any seriousness. It's somewhere there. People have told me to do it. So a few good friends and acquaintances of mine have said that that's something you should try. Maybe a coffee book. I'm still not sure, though. I mean, I'm not sure who and what the audience for such a book would be, and what is I guess, uh, what is going to be the reach of such a book. I'm not sure. Have you encountered anyone who's done that or tried that kind of
With 100 Strangers, I have not, but you mentioned earlier Humans of New York. They put out a book, I know. So similar projects have done it, but yeah, that's why I was curious if that's something you had thought about.
but a lot of like folks have told me to try that, but I'm just not sure. I mean, it's what's involved in that. I think today's world, it's much more easier. You can self-publish and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm not gotten to do that yet.
Okay. So, like, when you started the 100 Strangers project, when I started it 6 years ago, the focus was 100% on the photos and the interaction. Today, social media is video oriented. Instagram used to be a photo website. Now, if you try and post photos, they don't get much reach. It's all video is what gets the reach. So now we often see photographers who do similar things to 100 Strangers projects, going up to strangers to take their photos, doing video of the whole interaction, and then posting that video as a reel with like a couple quick flashes of the images at the end, and getting a lot of traction. Some of those accounts get hundreds of thousands of views, tens of thousands of likes. What's your reaction to that trend?
I mean, I'm envious of those people who can do that, honestly, because I do see the interactions and the engagement. But I don't know whether I am. I again, that is one more thing I've dabbled in. I've been told, by a lot of folks who are close to me that that's something you should try. And I'm again, I might do it at some point as a challenge to myself, just like I did this project. But it's not something that I'm naturally inclined to capture something on video like that, because I do not know whether one, it will create like a barrier when people are being recorded. They are not always being themselves. Uh, Plus, I think the effort. I've not explored this, but the effort that goes into editing those videos, right? Because I already spent enough time trying to find strangers, capturing them. Of course, with your family and everything else, it takes a lot of time, and then pick those pictures and then edit them and do everything you do. Now, if it is a video in there, I'm not sure the skills that go into developing the video to make sure that it looks clean, and also it's kind of, again, respectful to both, to especially the person I'm photographing, and it covers that person in a good light. I want to explore it. I That is something, again, on my list of things I want to try. I am envious of people I see who do similar projects, and see this huge engagement and a lot of followers, and some, and great photographers, some not so good photographers also getting a lot of engagement. There is, I forgot the name of this person. Is it in Texas? I think Austin. His photography, I think he does a great job. Richie Photonic, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but I see him on Facebook all the time, and I just like the approach he has. Some videos, I mean, many of these videos, I'm not a big fan of the whole approach and how they go about it, but some of them I genuinely feel like, oh, I do a lot of what he does, but he just does it much more in a manner which I would not be able to say no to a photograph, by him, right? The way he approaches people. So I like the idea of having a video, but I'm not sure I'm there yet, and also whether what is involved. So I've not really approached that, but I'm kind of, when I look at people doing it, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of good engagement. But I don't get a lot of engagement on Instagram. But I'm not also very, social media savvy in that sense. I've never done this for getting engagement. I've done it because I like doing it. So that has never been my focus. I just like it because I feel that I saw someone who I want to photograph. I photographed them. I wrote about interaction, and it's out there for, it made me feel good. Hopefully, it made the person made feel good. That's all that matters.
I think that's a good reminder that up until, 10, 15 years ago, people did photography because they enjoyed doing it. And there was no social media engagement in the way there is now. That didn't come into the picture. And so you can sometimes get frustrated. I know I do sometimes when I have what I think are amazing pictures. I post them and they don't get much engagement. It's important to remind yourself that's not why we're doing this. I mean, maybe it's why some people are doing it and it feels good to get the engagement, but you can do this project and never even post them on social media and just
Yeah.
have a cool project.
Yeah, on Flickr, I think sometimes there is that, you get into the explore group, right? They have the explore where they randomly pick for based on the engagement the picture has, and it reaches many more audience, much bigger audience, for the day. I think they pick the top 100 pictures based on whatever. And I got initially when I got in there a couple of times, it was a great high. I feel great even now when a lot of the stranger pictures get there, and it's good to get people's comments and feedback. But you eventually realize that it's all, I mean, it's great. And like you said, social media today, it's all about views and, and like comments and stuff. But the intent is what matters. My intent was not necessarily, that is kind of a byproduct. Yeah, if you get engagement and you get views and people like what you're doing, like we're having a conversation now, I mean, you find your tribe eventually. So
Yeah. So if somebody listening to this or watching this is inspired by everything that you're talking about and decides, I want to start my own 100 Strangers project tomorrow, and what would your advice be to them?
just jump in. I think we talked about this. I think doing it more often, failing often is fine. Even if every approach, even if it's a failure, I think it's fine, because that means your next approach is more closer to a success. uh right, and it's worth it. I mean, I would not see any of, if 15 people, 20 people say no, that's fine. There is no magic number. Sometimes you'll have a lot of rejections, but just jump in. Feeling nervous is part of it. Feeling anxious is part of it. The rush you get after you get a picture is part of it. That is a reward. So just go in there. I think having a linking to a group like I said, Flickr, and being a part of a group like 100 Strangers is good, because it keeps you in in a sense accountable, right? Not in a bad way. Like, it keeps you, you get inspired by seeing other people. You see other people's journeys, and you realize that most photographers who are doing this are more similar to you than dissimilar. There are days when I used to get a lot of rejections, and I'm like, oh, this is really bad, I'm not going to pursue this. But then you come there and see people have had it worse. I mean, some people have had it better. And even the best of photographers, you just see they are the best hits out there, but there are a lot of rejections behind it. Sometimes embarrassing, sometimes it's part of the journey. You are on the street, you're just a random person to the other person who's just going about their day. Think you're interrupting their day, when there might be 1,000 things on their mind, and you might be taken as a welcome interruption, or you might just be a nuisance. That's fine. The goal is, like I said earlier, go and ask. It's not personal. Rejections are fine. It's better to ask. And I think that applies to everything in life. Better to ask and get a no versus not asking and assuming it's a no, right? And I think as your body of work will improve, your skills will improve. I think more people you photograph, your confidence will go up. Even today, though, if I approach a photograph, a person to photograph, even after like almost 10 years, I still feel nervous. I still feel my heartbeat going up fast. That is part of that's supposed to be. If it doesn't happen, then it's no fun, I guess. Right. And that the rush, and once you meet the person, once you start talking, the initial barrier is broken. Even if the person says no, I think you still have made a connection, and it's kudos to you that you could go out and talk to someone. Right. I think that should be the first challenge. The photograph comes second. Just getting into the habit. If someone wants to start it, for example, even without the photograph, the camera is a barrier. Just going out there and just having a random conversation with someone, approaching someone and talking for a few seconds. Like anything else, I think it's a habit. You'll get better at it. I don't think there's anything to worry. Just go jump right in, and I think enjoy the ride is what I would think, and it'll get better.
I think that's great advice. If you do a 100 Strangers project, even if you don't finish, if you get anywhere in a 100 Strangers project, your photography will improve. Your ability to do portraits will improve. Your ability to direct people and pose people will improve. You will also build genuine relationships with people. So start today. Just go out there and ask somebody, and your first one, you may not think it's a great portrait, but boy, when you get after 10, 20, 50, you'll see an improvement. So do it.
Like you said, I've done this. I began as the strangers photographer. I still do the strangers photography, but I did switch to paid photography, even though I do it as a part-time basis. I do engagements, I do corporate headshots, I do weddings, which I never thought I would do. The last 10 years, I've done numerous such sessions, and for and it's been fun to. I still do the strangers photography because I love doing it, but paid photography is part of the need, and I again do it because I love the photography aspect of it. It allows me to do something other than my normal technical work, so to speak. This allows you to just be a different person, meet different people, connect with different people, and just be out of the comfort zone. And it's been great. I mean, like I said, I had never thought I call myself a photographer, doing paid photography over the last 10, 12 years. But this stages project is what led to the paid photography. So, you never know where your journey will take you.
Well said. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing this amazing information and inspiration. Frankly, where can people find your work so they can
So I
see for
think you can
themselves?
find me on Instagram as Vijay Britto Photography. I will send you the link to Brad. And then on Flickr again, I'm there as Vijay Britto. and Facebook, Vijay Britto Photography. And I also have a website. I do not put my strangest projects there. It's more, I guess, the paid photography, professional photography. Again, it's called vijaybrittofphotography.com.
There it is. So thank you again so much. And for everyone listening, I appreciate you listening. I hope you're inspired, like I am, to get out on the streets and get that picture. If you've listened this far, please hit like, subscribe, whatever it's called on the platform you're listening to. On YouTube, subscribe. On Spotify, give it a like, give it a 5 stars. That helps us get the podcast out to more people who are wanting to improve their photography. So finally, if you can afford a few bucks a month, Patreon is the way that you can support this podcast financially. Patreon.com/getthepicture. Every little bit helps to get the podcast more financially stable and before more people. So thanks so much again, Vijay. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much, Brad. I'm glad to be here. And again, if folks who are inspired, want, or are interested, want to reach out, any questions, feel free on Instagram, text me. I'll do my best to answer as much as I could. And yeah, I just hope more people do this and enjoy the ride.